So friends, what are some of the main takeaways from a New York jury's unanimous finding that Donald Trump sexually abused and defamed E. Jean Carroll? Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, a New York jury found, that is, concluded and announced, that Donald Trump sexually abused and defamed, that is, lied about, E. Jean Carroll. Here is the headline from NBC News. Headline: Trump found liable for sexually abusing and defaming E. Jean Carroll in civil trial and is ordered to pay $5 million. And friends, rather than read the reporting, let's go right to the primary source, the jury's verdict form. You ready for this? Question: did Mr. Trump sexually abuse Miss Carroll? The jury's unanimous answer: yes. Question: was Miss Carroll injured as a result of Mr. Trump's conduct? The jury's answer: yes. Yes or no, Mr. Trump's conduct was willfully or wantonly negligent, reckless, or done with a conscious disregard of the rights of Miss Carroll? Jury's answer: yes. Question: did Miss Carroll prove by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump's statement was defamatory? Jury's answer: yes. Question: did Miss Carroll prove by clear and convincing evidence that Mr. Trump's statement was false? Jury's answer: yes. Question: did Mr. Trump make the statement with actual malice? Jury's answer: yes. Question: was Miss Carroll injured as a result of Mr. Trump's publication of the October 12th, 2022 statement? Jury's answer: yes. Question: in making the statement, did Mr. Trump act maliciously, out of hatred, ill will, spite, or wanton, reckless, or willful disregard of the rights of another? Jury's unanimous answer: yes. And the aggregate amount of the jury award to Miss Carroll? $5 million. So what are some of the main takeaways from this historic trial and this historic verdict? Well, first of all, this verdict was reached at light speed. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Boy, they had no doubt about who should win this verdict. And that came after they watched E. Jean Carroll testify for 3 days. That jury had an extended period of time to observe E. Jean Carroll's demeanor, to assess her credibility, her candor, her honesty. And boy, they flat out believed her testimony. So friends, one of the main and most important takeaways: sexual assault victims are worthy of belief. And delayed reporting is entirely usual in sexual assault cases. I mean, what victim would want to be dragged through the mud, demonized, abused, defamed? What sexual assault victim would want to have to sit in a public forum like an open court and be called a liar hour after hour after hour by defense attorneys, particularly by the likes of Joey Tacopina? Delayed reporting is entirely usual, and that is not a reason to disbelieve sexual assault victims. A failure to scream, as Ms. Carroll was endlessly cross-examined about, is not a reason to disbelieve sexual assault victims. When somebody is being sexually assaulted, there are all kinds of reactions. People go into shock. People are fearful. They are scared to death that the violence will escalate if they scream. Failure to scream is not a reason to disbelieve sexual assault victims. So that, I contend, is one of the most important takeaways from this historic verdict in favor of a sexual assault and defamation victim. What are some of the other takeaways? Well, it wasn't just E. Jean Carroll's testimony standing alone in this case. Her attorneys also presented testimony of what we often refer to as an outcry witness, a very close friend of Miss Carroll's, to whom Miss Carroll reported this attack by Donald Trump within minutes of it happening back in the 1990s. There were also two other victims, two other women that Donald Trump sexually assaulted, who testified about their experience, their victimization at the hands of Donald Trump. And of course, there was Donald Trump's Access Hollywood tape and his deposition, where he doubled down on what he said on that Access Hollywood tape, that because he's a star, he gets to sexually assault women, right? When you're a star, they let you do it. And he actually added another word that made that claim all the more mind-blowingly despicable. He said, fortunately, when you're a star, they let you do it, fortunately or unfortunately. So Donald Trump confessed. He may have been the most damaging witness against Donald Trump. He confessed that his habit, his pattern, his practice, his right as a star was to sexually assault women. And friends, there are plenty of other takeaways, but I want to touch on just one more, and we'll finish with this one. The jury unanimously found two things: that Donald Trump committed sexual abuse of Miss Carroll, and that Donald Trump defamed Miss Carroll, lied about her to her detriment. And let's have a look at precisely what the jury had to find in order to conclude that Donald Trump was liable for sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is subjecting Miss Carroll to sexual contact with no consent. Sexual contact was defined as any touching of the sexual or intimate parts of the person for the purpose of gratifying the sexual desire of either party, and the jury found Donald Trump was liable for sexual abuse. Here's the thing, friends. This was a civil case, yes, but that really is a crime masquerading as a count in a civil suit. What do I mean by that? Well, what I just described there for you, the definition of sexual abuse, that's a crime. It's a crime that could not be charged by prosecutors in this case because the statute of limitations had expired. The statute of limitations essentially sets a deadline for prosecutors to bring a criminal charge. 5 years is one example of a statute of limitations. If the prosecutors don't charge somebody within 5 years of the crime, then the statute of limitations prevents the prosecutors from ever bringing a charge. So the statute of limitations had expired, but the conduct that Miss Carroll's attorneys proved to this jury's satisfaction unanimously is a crime, but it was a crime that was resolved in the context of this civil lawsuit. But keep that in mind, that what this jury unanimously found, a jury of Donald Trump's peers, is that Donald Trump committed conduct. He in fact committed conduct that constitutes a crime, even though they were only able to hold him responsible for that conduct in the context, in the setting of a civil suit, and award money damages. Now, I would hasten to add that this jury only had to find Donald Trump committed that conduct by a preponderance of the evidence. That's a lower standard, right? if he were ever charged with a crime, sexual abuse or other offenses, then the jury would have to conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed that conduct in order to hold him accountable for the crime. But I think it's still worth keeping in mind that most civil suits are about a contract dispute or a fender bender or medical malpractice or any one of hundreds and hundreds of other civil disputes between two people or two parties. But this one involved criminal conduct that was beyond the statute of limitations. But keep that in mind, because that tells you so much about who Donald Trump is and what Donald Trump does to women. And friends, with all of the prosecutors and all of the agents and investigators and detectives that have been investigating Donald Trump's crimes for years and years and years, I find it interesting that the first person to hold him accountable is Carroll. She is the first one who in court has achieved something that approximates justice. And justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again soon.